welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another D3D4 Football Podcast, the podcast looking exclusively at the best divisions in world football. It is, of course, League One and League Two, right here in England. Wherever you're listening to this, we appreciate you taking the time out to tune into our musings. And this week, it's just the two of us. It's just a two-man team this week. It's myself and Ed Walker. We did have Vale Floyd Fred, a Charlton fan, lined up, but he had a family emergency to deal with at very short notice this morning, so best wishes go to him. But the better half of the podcast is here, Ed, isn't it? So my name's James Richards. I'm the editor of D3D4 Football, and I'm joined, as I've said, by the walking encyclopedia of EFL knowledge. That is Ed Walker. How do we find you this week, Ed?
Yeah, I'm good. It does feel quite an empty Skype call at the minute, doesn't it, without the other two in there?
Yes, indeed, it is.
It's a bit different. You haven't got Chris's laughter as much this time, which is always a bit of a miss on the pod.
It is, indeed. Yeah. He's a man who laughs at anything, which is great.
He does.
Great when my puns.
He should be a happy dad today as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oldham winning the derby, which we will come to. That's a big result. We are, of course, in partnership with The Big Step, looking to tackle gambling's relationship with football, in particular the saturation of gambling advertising within the game. And on that note, Bolton Wanderers take a bow. Really good bit of, I don't know if it's what you can call it, really. I mean, it's just a great bit of decision making from the club.
Yeah.
Really, really nice to see a club taking that social responsibility that they have seriously. Bolton this week saying that they will not be having on-site gambling facilities at the Unibowl, and they will not be partnering up with any gambling companies in a sort of a commercial arrangement ever again, which is, I think you'll agree, Ed, pretty great news.
Yeah, I agree with that, certainly. And it could be the first club to do it, and others may follow soon.
Indeed. I mean, I think Luton, to be fair to them, have rejected many times in the past any gambling sponsorship. And I'm sure there are quite a few others, but it is, to me, that is great to see. I absolutely love it. So take a bow, Bolton Wanderers. You're a beautiful club. Absolutely great to see. And on that note, let's dive in to League One.
League One.
And we'll start with Bolton's game at the Stadium of Light. Apologies, Sunderland fans. Didn't give your...
This was James's fault, not ours, by the way.
It was my fault.
He's taking responsibility for this.
It is. I'm being the manager, taking responsibility for poor performance on my own shoulders here, because we didn't talk about Sunderland last week and their point against Fleetwood, sparing Bailey Wright, I think, to be fair. I was just being charitable, really. Didn't want to give him too much grief. But this week they get a win against Bolton. It's an important result, to be honest, because Bolton, I've seen them several times this season already, and they look so impressive. They keep a very stable lineup. I think it's fair to say that I think Ian Evatt has decided on what he feels is his strongest 11. Jones, Santos, Johnson, and Gordon across that back line, with Williams and Sheehan sitting in the deep roles in midfield, allowing Isgrove, Sarcevic and Afolayan to join Owen Doyle in attack. And it's a very fluid and very difficult team to play against. I think Sunderland will agree that they gave them some problems. But importantly for the Black Cats, it's another victory at home, and they must be, I think only them and Coventry now are 100% for home victories this season. Ed, is that right?
I think it would be after Hartlepool's draw yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And, there's a lot to like. Winchester netting the third goal this season. I can confirm, actually, that Winchester is the first city to score 3 or more goals in 2 separate League One seasons. Very good, Carl. Really good. He scored 4 goals in a season for Oldham, I think, in 14-15, and he's already got 3 this season from right back, which is impressive. He's taken to that. He's taken, I think, Lee Johnson, obviously, as Chris suggested, had him as a right back when he was at Oldham. And I think that's just perfect. He's slotted in that role. He's taken it on. And they look really good. And they got 09 and Dan Neil, the real deal Dan Neil, in midfield. Flanagan, who has not been a great player. You'll know him well, Ed, from his Burton days. But, I mean, he's not been a standout player necessarily at Sunderland, but he's certainly upped his game this season. That whole back line has been very impressive. And what do you make of this result? Because it's 1-0, but it's against a very good Bolton team.
Yeah, I think as you remember a few weeks back when they beat Wigan 3-1 at home, and I said at the time, that's a result to make a big deal out because of how strong Wigan are. I feel the same with beating this Bolton team. I think anyone who beats this Bolton team this season should make a big deal out of it because they're such a strong side. So for Sunderland to have that win as well is fantastic. I always love a goal when one fullback assists the other, because that's what it was yesterday. Dennis Chirkin basically firing the ball across the Winchester to tap in. That's when you know you're an attacking team, when you've got your two fullbacks getting in the goal involvements like that.
Yeah,
and it's just another fantastic win. I was really surprised to hear, I don't know if I'm right with this, but apparently Lee Johnson's not won a promotion in EFL before.
That's true.
Is what I'd heard from his previous clubs, which is always surprising, but they're going strong at the minute. I can't really have many faults with them.
No, I agree. McGeady's playing well. Embleton, I think, is one of the standout stories of the season. And
I'm glad they kept him and not loaned him out again, because that would have been a horrific mistake after last season.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's a top player. He's developed. He's had his time away from the club probably to get the game time, and now a bit of faith being put in him. And Ross Stewart leads the line really well. Obviously, he hasn't scored in the last few games, but he's already got his 5 already this season, and I think he leads the line impressively. And like you say, if you've got fullbacks that are attacking and getting forward and joining the attacking phase as much as Sunderland are doing at the moment, you don't necessarily need to rely on one man for the goals. You've got this attacking thrust. I mean, I don't know if they remind me. I mean, Luton obviously played that diamond, but they had attacking fullbacks. I'm trying to think.
I don't think they're quite. I mean, that Luton team, I remember it well. They were ruthless. They kept going non-stop. I'm not sure if Sunderland are quite to the same level as that, but it is good to see them playing attacking football, which is what the fans want.
Absolutely. I mean, they've had to slum it a little bit, didn't they, under Jack Ross and Phil Parkinson. Some of the football there was a little more attritional. And yes, Lee Johnson had that poor run at the end of last season, had his detractors, but I hope now the fans are seeing what he's bringing to the table and his ideas and why I think he was appointed in the first place. So really good stuff. And Doyle again at the heart of the defence. I think for us, he's Callum Doyle. He's 17 still, isn't he? He's
still 17. Yeah. He's 17. A week today, I think. Actually, I think it's when he turns 18. Sorry.
Yeah.
October, I believe.
Crazy, and obviously they've got Burge now as their backup keeper, which is what many were calling for. Which and then the bench with people like Evans and Alves and Broadhead. I mean, Broadhead, I'd be interested to see how he does given a run of games, because again, he's one of these highly thought of youngsters. Did reasonably well. Am I right in saying, for Burton on loan?
I was a really big fan of his close control. That's what I liked. He played out on the left quite a lot for us. A player who could get control of the ball, run out his man, confident going past him. Wasn't necessarily that much end product from him at that stage. And I was a bit surprised he wasn't out on loan somewhere last season. So to have him back out on loan now could be Sunderland's gain for sure.
Absolutely. A defeat for Bolton. Not again. They played okay. Wouldn't be too worried. And they're just a team that we like a lot at the moment. Wigan, a team that everyone should be liking a lot at the moment, a 2-0 win over Charlton, which is not to be sniffed at, to be honest. Charlton, a very good side. Charlie White back in amongst the goals again. Callum Lang having a brilliant season. Like we've said many times, finally given his chance in the Wigan shirt and taking it in style, it has to be said. But just, again, like we said, Liam Richardson has to take a huge amount of credit here, doesn't he? Because this is a very different sort of set of ambitions and expectations from what he inherited last year.
Well, this is what Wigan should be doing normally when they go into League One, is dominate, and that's what they're doing this season. You had last year, which was different because of the circumstances they started the season in, that huge amount of uncertainty, being relegated from the Championship via that points deduction as well. It was all about survival. We're back, I think, to seeing what we can do in League One now, which is challenge the promotion, and they look brilliant at the minute.
I like the mix of sort of experience and youth. I mean, you've got Amos in goal, who's done a lot at this level already. Watmore, who, if he hadn't had injuries, would be playing in the Championship. Max Power obviously knows this level well, as does Tom Naylor. James McLean has always played above this level as much as I can remember. Charlie White, ruthless last season. Then you've got good young players like Callum Lang, who, I mean, I suppose he's not that young anymore, but you've got Kellen Watts as well. And I really have been impressed with Keane, who's kind of playing just off Charlie White, perhaps in the 10 role, and he's really impressed me this season. Have to be said. Was Watmore? Does anyone know is Watmore injured yesterday though? A bit of a worry. Came off after an hour.
I would have thought it is being brought off. He wasn't on a yellow, so that could well be it.
Yeah, big concern. Every time he gets injured, I just wince because I know historically, he's had some very, very serious injury problems, and it's always a concern because he's a great player, and I do feel so sorry for players that just seem to be injury prone despite having huge talent. We've seen it with a few players in the EFL over the years, but a great result for Wigan at home against Charlton, who, again, I've been hugely impressed with Michael Duff's side this season, beating Oxford last weekend and setting up pretty well. I mean, when you think of that back line that they had that was so settled last season, Ed, wasn't it? It was Boyle, Raglan and Tozer. It's a completely different back three they've gone with yesterday.
Yeah, it's massively different, wasn't it? Lewis Freestone, Matty Pollock and Sean Long. I don't really mind any of those three. I've been quite encouraged by Freestone. I didn't mind him in League Two last season. I thought it was a bit of a gap between him and the starting players, but he seems to be handling League One really well. Matty Pollock, if you ever saw him at Grimsby, the physical presence he has at such a young age is incredible. And he felt like, if you think about a centre-half that Cheltenham Town would want to use, I'd think of Matty Pollock. He feels like the perfect fit into that. And Sean Long, who was originally, I think, a wing-back in this team, has really found a home at centre-half as well. So they've grown into a really nice back three so far.
Yeah, very impressed. Very impressed with that team. And like you say, Pollock, who I think will thrive under the tutelage of Duff. I really do. I think that's what he needed. He was, obviously talented at Grimsby, bit of coaching, and that potential should continue to grow. Now, we were going to have Freddie talk about Charlton, but they've gone and drawn 2-2 yesterday with Portsmouth. Really poor start, and you're sort of thinking again, here we go. What is wrong with this team? 6 minutes in, they go a goal down. Really nice strike by Curtis, but
yeah,
fair play to Adkins. He did make some changes, and they got back in the game. But again, they dropped behind, and they show character to come back and get a point. But let's be honest, it's not been the start to the season that Charlton would like. And you could argue that for Portsmouth the same. Portsmouth having to get a late equaliser in the dying moments of their game against Plymouth midweek, and then the kind of roles reversed. They concede a late goal in this one. What is it with Charlton and the fans calling for Adkins? Quite a few very, very unhappy with what he's done so far. And what are your thoughts on all of the things going on at the Valley?
I can't quite know for sure. It sounds like perhaps the most effective footballers are being used for what they have. They seem to be relying on Jayden Stockley's more this outlet up top, which he can be, but you want to bring more of the players into the game. I remember seeing them, I think, a couple of weeks back, where they were using a 4-4-2 with people like Dayalang Jayasimi and Charlie Kirk as wingers. They are wingers, but they're not 4-4-2 wingers to me. You think about a 4-4-2 winger as someone who needs to contribute almost as much to the defensive phase as the attacking phase, and you want those two really purely in the attacking phase. You don't want
4-3-3 wingers, or maybe
exactly, they're 4-3-3 ones.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he's maybe not been using his personnel as well as he can. I thought, the midfield three yesterday I've got here was, I think, Harry Arter, Ben Watson and Alex Gilbey. There's a lot of quality in that.
There is, yeah.
A lot more quality to be in the position they are, and I think there's questions coming Adkins' way, to be honest, if there aren't already soon.
Plenty coming his way, trust me. Yeah, a lot of Charlton fans are really, really unhappy with the situation. He's a very positive guy, and should he get more time? Arguably, yes, absolutely. But like we say, not the start that they wanted. I mean, one thing I've noticed, he makes a lot of changes, which never instills confidence. He's chopped and changed the team. 5 changes, I think.
Is that because he doesn't know his best 11?
Well, I guess so, yeah. It must be, because you don't make 5 changes. I mean, he was very unhappy with the Wickham performance. It was a poor performance, and then obviously they've had other results which just seem to slip away from them far too easily. To see Charlton at this stage, as we approach the 10-game mark, third from bottom, I mean, you could argue it's still a bit early because we've got Ipswich fourth from bottom, but they get the draw.
But there's signs in teams like Ipswich though, and in Lincoln recently, that you can see they're kind of reaching another level. Charlton still seem to be poor.
They've had one
win.
win.
See what I'm saying?
One win this season in 9 games, and that was at home against Crewe, who have struggled massively.
And they're down the bottom with them at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've had a mixed bag of fixtures. They've obviously played the teams like Portsmouth, Wickham, Sheffield Wednesday, who, all NK Dons away as well. So it's difficult, but they've had games at home against the likes of Cheltenham, and yes, against Portsmouth. I mean, it's difficult. Portsmouth are in a similar situation, really, with just frustratingly not quite finding their form. Obviously, was it 5 without a win now for Danny Cowley's men? Oh, no, sorry, six without a win.
6 without a win.
So that's concerning. But you've got to argue going to the Valley and getting a draw is not bad. At a point on the road is fine. Drawing against Plymouth as well. When you consider defensive howlers. If you looked at the midweek game, it was awful defending for both the Plymouth goals. I mean, great finish from Ryan Hardy, not taking anything away from the Plymouth striker, but they were such avoidable mistakes, and you can see the frustrations from Danny Cowley. Obviously, losing to Cambridge was a bit of a shock, especially at Fratton Park. But yeah, they still flatter to deceive, and I'm not sure exactly where you go with it. I think the one thing I'd worry about, Ed, with Pompey is lack of depth. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I just feel pretty underwhelmed with the bit like Charlton, really. You think about some of the sides that you fancy could beat into promotion at the minute. I don't really put Portsmouth in that bracket at the moment. They just seem too inconsistent.
At the moment, they certainly do. When you consider that they're already going to be playing catch-up to the likes of Sunderland and Wigan.
Well, they're one of a ton. There's an absolute ton of teams in this table that are stuck on 12 points at the minute. So, there is the chance, but you've got to take that chance quick or that gap's just going to get away from them.
Yeah, well, there are a few teams, isn't it, that had probably quite lofty ambitions. And, I know it's early days, but you don't want to give yourself too much to do, because although teams like Oxford last season are a good example of how you can come roaring back and get into a playoff place or still reach sort of your pre-season ambitions despite a poor start, it's harder to do and it's rare, I think. It's not something that happens all the time. So Portsmouth certainly got some work to do, as has Nigel Adkins, to be fair, at Charlton. Shrewsbury Town beating AFC Wimbledon is a really, really good result. And one that they should take a lot of heart from, Ed, because I've been quite worried about Shrewsbury recently.
Yeah, I have the same. This is a big result. And against Wimbledon as well, who have been, maybe I'd say alongside Argyle, the most fun division that we weren't expecting to be fun perhaps this season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So to beat them, having gone behind as well, I quite like Luke Leahy's equaliser. It's just a header that just loops over and the keeper just completely watches it go over his head and drip in. I quite like that one.
Yeah, I always like headers like that. I mean, I have to say, if you want to sum up Wimbledon this season, their goal kind of does that, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Lovely counter-attack, great assist with a wonderful finish. But yeah, Shrewsbury coming back to win 2-1. I look at this team and I think, they've obviously had less of the ball in this game, and that's always going to be the case against the Wimbledon side, who've playing with that kind of confidence. And just, I saw that Vale might have got injured, and if that's the case, that is a worry.
And they're down to what, 2 midfielders again?
Yeah,
that's the problem. If they lose midfielders, you notice it, because there's not any depth there.
I do like Ryan Bowman.
I still can't work out how they managed to get in that situation.
Well, like we say, Steve Cotterill had the recruitment. He was in charge of recruitment. The director of football works for him, so it's on the manager. Simple as that. It's on the manager. This, I think, the club gave him the budget, the maximum budget that they could give any manager. It was all there for him to do. Do you sometimes think that is a bit too old school, that sort of setup?
What, for the manager to recruit players? Potentially. I know some clubs like to approach this. Maybe a director of football approach the recruiting transfers. I don't think it's wrong. You would hope that the manager has a good understanding of the league, and you'd think they know exactly who they want for their own particular squad to get the right people in. But it doesn't seem to work that effectively at Shrewsbury. And I don't like as well that I think yesterday they lined up with Ryan Bowman and Sam Cosgrove up top, 2 strikers. I don't really fancy either of them getting a lot of goals this season.
I'd fancy Bowman. I think Bowman's, having looked at what he did...
I don't think they've had a lot so far, have they? And it just feels...
I like Bowman more than Cosgrove. I think Cosgrove has underwhelmed hugely since arriving. I mean, remember, wasn't he a £2 million signing for Birmingham?
He was, and that was it. He was ineffective at Birmingham as well, and has dropped down division. Doesn't look much different, to be honest.
No, he's not a player I've been at all impressed with, and I do wonder what he brings. Although coming on to replace him and getting the winner, so fair play, effective substitution. That
So like Ado and Bloxham are probably a better pair at the minute. They feel more confident.
Yeah, I do like Bowman though. I will defend Bowman to an extent because what he brought to Exeter was quite a lot. In fairness, like in the couple of seasons he was there, he may not be your typical out and out goal scorer, though he does chip in with a few. But he's very annoying to play against. And he'll if you get people close enough to him, he'll create a bit of mayhem, and you should get some goals. And like Leahy playing in his position where he should be, much better than playing him central midfield, frankly. And Bennett, I think, has been one of the better bits of recruitment this summer for the Shrews. I think Bennett's been a good player, as has Mark Morosi on the whole. So, but yeah, Josh Feller injury does worry me somewhat. Wimbledon won't be happy, but they've had a very good start to the season, and it's one of those games, isn't it? They will be, I'm sure, Mark Robinson will be philosophical about this one. Morecambe have not been a team lacking in entertainment, Ed, this season, it's fair to say. A 3-3 draw with Accrington, and probably the two lowest budgets in League One, meeting and showing what you can produce with some really good coaching. And just both clubs obviously have that feel-good factor around them, and it's really nice to see. About 500 Accrington fans made the trip to the Mazuma, and they got the money's worth, didn't they?
I'm tempted to get a Morecambe season ticket because I think every game there's just going to be a blast this season. They just seem to have a ton of goals, and I love the fact that you've got all these amazing forward players in League One, and the top scorer is Cole Stockton.
He scored 10 goals in 11 appearances in all competitions. 8
league goals so far. He's absolutely unreal.
Yeah. Was it 2 he got yesterday?
He got 2, yeah. I love the second one as well, where he just hits it kind of with the outside the foot, just kind of cushions it into the net as well for the equaliser. Fantastic.
Absolutely. And what impressed me most probably about this entire result was that Morecambe played like more than half of the match down to 10 men.
Yeah. They did.
You give Stockton his dues. Let's give Colby Bishop his dues. A brace from him, a player that was playing. Was he at Leamington? Was that Dion Charles?
He was the one at Leamington. Yes, Dion Charles was at Southport.
Yeah. So he's Leamington. He's come in, and he's really impressed. They had to beat off a fair bit of interest, I think, over the summer for his services, and they managed to do that. I mean, you look at this result. Morecambe had 3 shots on target, and they score all of them. Accrington will be disappointed. Obviously, had 9 shots on target, and it finishes 3-3. Again, like I said, playing against 10 men for a lot of the match. Definitely in the context of things, that's 2 points dropped for Accrington. But both sides having a really good start to the campaign, and thoroughly entertaining, really good stuff. I don't know if this is counted as a derby. Wycombe fans might kill me for this, but they're two clubs. They're two clubs in Buckinghamshire.
I think MK Dons were making out to be one, weren't they?
Yeah.
Saw that in the build-up. Who's Buckinghamshire's what colour? Debatable.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I don't think I'm not having this as a derby personally myself. I don't think Wycombe would certainly see that, but they do play in the same county, so there you go. But it was decided by a penalty, and I had a feeling it would be something like this that decided the game between two sides that have, to be fair, impressed me so far this season.
Yeah, I'm looking at the statistics here, and it's very much how I expect the statistics on the MK Dons side look exactly how I expect MK Dons to be. Dominate possession, goals, attempts, shots on goal. And then Wycombe, of course, having less of the ball, less attempts on goal, but they're comfortable with that. So you've got kind of two polar opposites in terms of like possession and how they play and like their passing sequences here. And it's a penalty that's decided it's from Troy Parrott.
Yeah, really good spot kick. Definitely a penalty. I don't have any complaints with that. I don't know if you're a fashion guru, Ed, but Gareth Ainsworth wearing his cowboy boots again, the red ones.
Ainsworth can do what he pleases.
He can, yeah. The rock and roll manager that continues to sort of play up to that role. But yeah, great result for MK Dons. Kind of keeps them ticking over in third place now in the league 1 point behind the current top two. Still early days looking at the table, but I have to say that's an impressive early form. I mean, there's like a 4 point gap between the top four and the rest of the table at the moment, which I guess it's early because I think Wycombe still have a game in hand, but be interesting to see how this table develops moving over the next sort of 10, 15 games, because I'm not sure. Part of me thinks that we might see a couple of teams pull away. Do you think that's likely?
I wonder if Wigan and Sunderland could. Maybe MK Dons as well, because MK Dons, we were left a bit worried about them after Russell Martin left. It feels like they got this appointment right with Liam Manning, and there was never really any doubt about the quality within that squad. It was whether they could find that replacement in the head coach department that would get the best out of them, and it really seems to be so far. So I wonder maybe if those three could pull clear, although I'm doing Plymouth a disservice as well, because they've been wonderful so far as well. If they keep their defensive record up, they'll be with them.
They did struggle somewhat against Doncaster yesterday. I thought Doncaster went to home park and played really well. Late goals winning it for Argyle. I say late goals. Two penalties, the second one in stoppage time. I get the sense from looking at those, there was a little bit of panic setting in the Doncaster team. Just, I think, because of the struggles they've had, they're holding a lead against a team in form, and it kind of led to a little bit of indecisiveness.
Well, it was a disaster from Dahlberg, wasn't it, for that winning penalty?
It was.
Dropping across and then just clattering. I can't remember who it was, but he brought him to the floor. Really disappointing day for him.
Disappointing result. I think Richie Wellens, though, was very pleased with the performance. Didn't really have a lot to criticise of his players. I think he asked for a bit more composure, a bit more maturity.
Got a red card, didn't he?
He did, yeah, complaining about the penalties. I noticed that his interview on the Doncaster YouTube channel was heavily edited. I think they're saving his bacon.
I can imagine.
Yeah. It was an interview which I'm sure they interviewed him for more than 57 seconds, but that's all the footage that made it onto the final cut. So. Sensible decision from whoever is the media guys at Doncaster there, making sure their manager doesn't get into strife. Watching his back, always good to see. Rotherham and Crewe finished 1-1. Crewe picking up a really important point here. Again, Porter getting the penalty right in the dying moments of the game, and you take that all day long if you're Crewe Alexandra and the struggles that you've had this season. Only 6 points so far from their 9 matches. Chris Porter, evergreen Chris Porter, getting the late equaliser. Oxford and Gillingham drew 1-1. To be fair, Oxford dominated a lot of this game. Gillingham had some good spells. Really impressed with Danny Lloyd's energy, and Carl Dempsey is clearly the most important player for Gillingham. He's just everywhere. He's a dynamic midfielder, protects the defence well, gets forward and makes things tick, makes things happen. But Dane Oliver got a bit of rough treatment from the Oxford defenders, and I'm sure he'll get used to that throughout the whole season. The first 20 minutes, Gillingham weren't in the game at all. Oxford should have been out of sight, but they got a foothold, did Gillingham, and a nice finish, although he had all the space in the world to do it from McDonald. Classy guy, didn't celebrate, obviously had a big part to play for Oxford in previous years, and really smart professional, great finish. But then Jamie Cumming made some really impressive stops in that second half. Really good young goalkeeper. Very impressed with him. The penalty at the end, my take on this is it was just good defending from Jack Tucker, if I'm honest. And because yes, the emotion of the game is Oxford deserved to win, and we should have probably won. But if the shoe was on the other foot, I would be furious if that was given as a penalty. I don't know, as a neutral, Ed, what you made of the Jamie Tucker Mark Sykes incident.
I can't remember it, to be honest, the incident right at the end.
So it's a ball headed down into the path of Mark Sykes. He runs through, and basically Jack Tucker kind of leans across him to stop him getting in front of him, so the keeper can come out and collect the ball. And he goes down, and I think, in fairness, that's good defending. What's Jack Tucker to do? He didn't trip him up, he didn't block him off as such, but I think it's decent defending. I mean, like I say, if that's given, then I would be a very angry Oxford fan if the shoe was on the other foot. I think Steve Evans said they had a stonewall penalty near the end at the other end. I mean, again, I don't think that was a penalty either, to be honest. I think the referee made a fair and good decision on both of those. Cambridge finished 2-2 at home to Fleetwood. Fleetwood in some fine form. Paddy Lane, a young man.
I love that name.
Yeah, it's really nice.
That's a really cool name. That
Paddy Lane, and it sounds something like out of an old.
Like three of the goal scorers in this game were Hill, May, and Lane.
Hill, May, and Lane.
Very basic names. Lovely stuff.
A great strike from May, by the way, wasn't it?
Yeah, fantastic.
And Cambridge.
They don't look out of depth in this league one bit. I mean, we weren't the only ones to write Cambridge off at the start of the season. I think most did. We're looking like fools, to be honest. They don't look out of their depth in this league one bit at all.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Mark Bodler's done an absolute superb job there. Simon Grayson, we weren't too sure on Fleetwood either, to be fair. But they've got themselves on a bit of a run and have got some impressive young players. I have to say they've surprised me somewhat in recent weeks with their turnaround. And yeah, it was 2-2 at Cambridge. Cambridge not an easy team to play against. I'd say that's a good result. And Lincoln beating Burton Ed, Anthony Scully yet again, trying to keep pace with Stockton. He scored 6 league goals now. I think he scored 10 in all competitions in 12 appearances. Should have had another one at the end there. I'll let him off that. But
that was a horrific miss. How on earth did that happen? That was terrible. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the goal at Boswick. It's kind of ironic that Boswick flicks it basically into Scully's path to score. He was an ex-Lincoln man. So was there a bit of an assist there? No, probably not. But Burton, we've gone flat. We've gone really flat compared to those first 3 wins to start the season. Feel like an eternity ago now. They've winless in 6. I think Hasselbank's longest winless run at Burton prior to this was 4. And when you get into this 6-game winless run, you can't help but look at things and think, well, where's the next 3 points coming from? Because they've got, I think it's Portsmouth on Tuesday night. Then they go to Wimbledon. Then they go to Plymouth. Not 3 games I really want to be going to in this stage. And I can't lie, I'm kind of looking at the gap to 21st at the minute, which is currently 6 points. And I'm wondering if that's going to get smaller because they have looked off it. I don't think there's been a complete 90-minute performance yet ever really since that win over Sunderland. It's gone quite flat. And I'm a little bit worried about it.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? You had all that positivity. I mean, you look at your squad. There's enough, enough there to feel pretty positive about. But like you say, the results haven't been coming. Lincoln, obviously, I've been impressed with the way they've turned things around, and obviously had their issues with injuries and stuff at the start of the season. Ferini,
it only felt like a while till they properly get going, didn't it? With Lincoln.
Yeah, I mean every team.
And I think we're starting to see that with them now, certainly.
Exactly. And teams that struggled like Oxford had this, didn't we? We lost in the playoff final, and it took us ages to get going. Last season, and obviously when you have a few players move on, and it does take time. But I think Fiorini was a player I marked out in my previous one to watch. He started to come into his own. The chap on loan from Man City. Obviously Anthony Scully having the season of his life. I mean, absolutely brilliant performance he's putting in week out, and Lincoln would go to Burton, which is you're saying you've lost off the pace, but still I think it's still a very good result.
Lincoln seems to have a good time with Burton always, to be honest. I can't remember the last time Burton beat them. It feels like every time they meet. To be honest, I feel like the 2 perfect teams to counter how Burton play have been Lincoln and Oxford over the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, I'd agree with that. Oxford taking you guys apart a few times recently. I don't think it's going to be quite as easy in some of the meetings that we'll have in the league this season. But
I hope not.
I hope so, actually, funnily enough. But there you go. Ipswich drew 1-1 with Sheffield Wednesday. A sneaky Macaulay Bonne.
This was hilarious. Can I just say, this was so funny.
He's been watching videos of Hallam Hope from his Carlisle days.
I don't know if you've seen, there's a video of it from behind one of the goals, the goal that scored from. He stood behind him for 10 plus seconds. How does no one point him out? How does none of the Sheffield Wednesday defenders, or even Peacock Tharrow himself, who should be checking his shoulder, not see him behind it? I don't know if you noticed as well, he kind of almost raises his hand to the crowd behind, the Ipswich crowd, to say, I know I'm behind him, keep quiet, don't let him know I'm here. And then Peacock Tharrow just drops the ball and he just takes it off him.
Oh, brilliant stuff.
It baffles me how they've been able to do that.
And you think this is something that's been happening. There's been a few examples of these in the last few seasons. Like I said, the one I remember most is Hallam Hope, who literally stood by the goalpost, waited for, I think it was against Swindon. He waited for the Swindon keeper to drop the ball.
I think there was one from the Premier League back in the 90s as well, something that happened.
Yeah.
Like he'd stayed by, it was a goal kick or something, or he'd gone to roll it out in front of him, and he'd stayed behind the goal a little bit, and as he rolled it out in front of him to take the kick away, he just came in front and slid in the corner.
Dion Dublin against Shay Given?
Might have been Dion Dublin, yeah, it could have been.
Dion Dublin against Shay Given, I have a feeling. But I like I said, it's poor all round from Sheffield Wednesday, from the defenders' communication and to Peacock Flower just being a little bit like diligent. Just, when you're a team that's on a little bit of a bad run, you don't want to give away a soft goal against an Ipswich side who, we know have got good players. But a 1-1 draw
right at the end as well.
Yeah. But fair play, Macaulay Bonne using his noggin, and real disappointing result for Sheffield Wednesday given how it ended. The League One table, though, like we say, the first time I've really looked at it properly, I have to be said, it was yesterday. And Wigan, obviously top with Sunderland, both with 19 points from their first 8 games. MK Dons 18 points from 9. Plymouth, brilliant from Plymouth, 18 points from 9. Take that all day long. Rotherham and Wycombe exactly where we sort of expected them to be. Accrington 13 points from their 9 games, which is really good. Wimbledon 12 points, along with literally half the table.
Portsmouth, Sheffield Wednesday, Cambridge, Oxford, Cheltenham, Burton.
Yeah,
we knew this would be tight. It's going to show it so far.
Yeah, Morecambe and Lincoln on 11. At the bottom, Doncaster only 4 points, and I worry about them already. Crewe as well, 6 points. Charlton 6 points is quite a shock, and Ipswich 7 points from their 8 games. I mean, the thing for Ipswich is just stop conceding. It was a good goal that they conceded yesterday. To be fair, Sheffield Wednesday will really nice finish, but they've got to tighten up going forward, as we know. And then Shrewsbury and Gillingham teetering on that sort of in those positions just outside the relegation zone, with their 8 points from 9 games, respectively. Right, let's jump down into League Two.
League Two.
And Oldham fans, we're going to be talking about your club in the context of a Derby Day victory and not off the field shenanigans and protests. It was a really feel-good day for Oldham yesterday. A 1-0 win. Davis Keeler done with a wonderful finish. 1,500 was the official figure of Oldham fans there was like 1,500, I think. But the truth was there's probably close to 1,800, I think, actually in the stadium. Oldham fans everywhere. And really enjoyable performance. Back-to-back clean sheets for the first time since March for the Latics. A little bit of stability. Finally got Harrison McGee's registration done. He got his debut yesterday. I mean, having your debut in 9 games into the season, I mean, just shows what a mess things have been, really, if with this loan agreement with the EFL. Did you see Keith Curle's interview post Brentford, Ed, after their 7-0 defeat in the Cup?
I haven't seen the interview. No, I was at that game, and I know how bad Oldham were in it. I don't know what he said. Well,
basically, he couldn't pick a team until right before kickoff because the EFL were basically making him jump through hoops regarding trying to get Harrison McGee registered. This rule that says that an academy player who is 17 years old, if he starts a match, he has to be included in your players of significance and becomes one of your 22. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. He couldn't play against Brentford, any of the youngsters. He couldn't start them because if he started them, they become part of his 22 and he wouldn't have then be able to register Harrison McGahey for this game. He'd have had to let players leave before he could register him. And where's the thinking behind this? This is the most stupid rule ever because we should be seeing the EFL encourage clubs to start young players from their academies. I'd understand like if you have an age limit, say if they're 21 years of age or older when the season kicks off, they start a match, then you have to put them as a significant player and one of the 22. But if they're that young, you're talking 17-year-olds here for Oldham. They shouldn't take up a squad space, or am I just being fruitful and fanciful in this line of thought?
Well, they suppose they don't take up squad bases, really. When you think about registering the squad, if you're 21 or under, you don't count as a registered player, do you?
Well, for Oldham it does. And
in terms of a 25-man squad, they say if you're 21 or under, you don't. I'm pretty sure you don't class in that squad anyway.
Well, for Oldham, they have a limit. I think it's to do with the loan, perhaps, that they've taken out. They're one of 3 clubs. Scunthorpe's the other one. I can't remember who the third one is. I think it's Gillingham. who took out that loan, you've got a squad cap of 22 players. And yet they're counting in that squad cap of 22 players 17-year-olds from the academy. And
I don't think that's right at all.
it's awful. It's awful. Keith Curtis had that's why he only had 3 subs, and he couldn't play. He didn't want to start Piagiani against Brentford because he'd had a knock, but he had no choice. That's literally the only players he could put out. He had 15 players unavailable for selection against Brentford.
Well, do you know what? That's made it very. I mean, Brentford were good on that day, but that's made it really clear to me now why they were so dominant. I completely get that now.
I also think the early goal, when you're Brentford and you score an early goal against a 4th tier side who've lost pretty much all their games this season, it just means that you play with that freedom, and Oldham obviously never going to match them. But finally got McGahey into the lineup. Then he could start Benny Couto, because once he's filled up his 22 quota, he can then, all the youngsters then can come in and play. Because obviously he's got his quota set up. I mean, the rules are just. He was basically saying the rules are set up to make them fail, is what he felt like, and I have to agree with him. When things are tough, and Keith Culler's managed the situation brilliantly, I think, considering all the problems on and off the field. He's handled it with huge dignity, but he could finally set up a shape, play with what he wanted. Clark, McGahey, and Piagiani is a decent back 3. Fage, Diarra, Whelan and Couto, Benji Couto is 17 years old, playing, starting his first
I like him.
game. Yeah,
I like him. He's lively. I was very keen. He had Oldham's lone moment, to be honest, in that game against Brentford, where he tried to lob the keeper from about 35 yards, and he nearly pulled it off. He's a bit fearless, that kid. I quite like the look of him.
Well, I think that's a good thing about playing academy guys. I mean, they've got such enthusiasm, and obviously with the huge injury crisis that Oldham have got, playing Whelan and Diarra is not ideal centre midfield partnership, you'd argue, but with everyone else out, what can you do? But that front 3 they play with Keeler Dunn, if he can get back to the form of last season, Hope and Bahambula work hard and have a bit of skill. Bahambula, we all know what he can bring to the table, so that's not. Did
you see
bad.
The video of him after the game as well?
No, what? There's a video of Bahambula that I haven't seen.
He's just doing Zakipi up with fans outside. How can you not love that man? He just loves that club. Right. It's unbelievable.
I'm ordering you to DM that to me right now.
I will get that video for you and send that across to you after this.
Absolutely.
You will love it.
I will. Bahambula moments. They may not be around for long for us in the D3D4 fold, so make the most of them while you can. But a great result. Not too concerned for Rochdale, simply because they've had a great start to the season. They made a few changes for this game. Broadbent coming into the midfield, Graham coming into the back line. But I think Oldham did a good job on them, and I think those difference makers that they have in that side were just not quite at it. But I've been pretty impressed with Rochdale so far this season. Sutton beating Carlisle 4-0. Great result for Sutton. Finally starting to find a bit of rhythm against a Carlisle side who are completely off kilter, it feels, at the moment. A lot of fans asking for Chris Beach to go. Ed, your thoughts on this? There's a lot to sort of unpack, but Carlisle not in a great run of form. And if you look back to as far as maybe January last year, I mean, I think it's a bit unfair to judge them too much in January last year because of all the things that they were dealing with. But Carlisle fans, are they fair in their assessment that this is enough is enough?
It's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because I'm such a big fan of a lot of this Carlisle. I still think they've got one of the best midfields in this league. And it doesn't feel like they're going to come close to repeating that kind of highs they did before they had that point where they just were not able to play a string of games, which wasn't their fault. They were unable to play because of COVID and issues with Brunton Park as well, and that really killed their season last year. I don't feel like we're going to find them in repeating that this year, where they're in that strong position potentially around the new year. It just feels like they're just not at the same level at the moment. And I get the criticism of them because you expect more from Carlisle. They don't want to be languishing in this league any longer. They've been here too long.
I just think there's a lot of challenges which also need to be factored in. If you're coming from a neutral point of view like I am, I look at Carlisle and think, it's hard to recruit there. They're generally offering only 1-year contracts. I've spoken to a few people that I know who were saying that they only left Carlisle this summer because they weren't offered the deal in terms of term that they wanted. So, why would they stick around? I mean, you look at the players that left. Zanzala left. Rhys Bennett left. Paul Farman left.
Rory Patrick, George Tanner.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at that back four now, you'd argue that 3 of the best players in that back four have gone. George Tanner, Rhys Bennett, and Aaron Hayden. That's not easy to replace. I was less concerned about Nick Anderton going, because I think Jack Armer's done a good job at stepping up and making left back his own. But yeah, it's difficult. It's a really difficult one. I get why the fans are frustrated. I do always put on my head and think, well, if you bring someone else in, are they going to be able to do any better? Does he deserve more time? It's very difficult. Very difficult to tell fans who watch their team week in, week out and feel it's time for a change. It's difficult to tell them that maybe they should be more patient, because you can see their point of view, but it is not an easy situation. I think any manager at Carlisle who has faced the challenges that Chris Beech has would probably be struggling a little bit right now. But they do, whatever you look at it, they do need to bounce back, and they need to bounce back quickly from a very, very poor showing yesterday. Mampala coming on and getting sent off. That's just so poor. Although, very harsh second yellow, has to be said. Very harsh second yellow. But, in their stride now. At Sutton, they've got a very, very settled team. Alistair Smith, shout out to him, because of course he's keeping Harry Buterman out of the side, who's a key part of their promotion campaign.
Absolutely. I really like David Ajiboye as well. Lively winger. He's
been brilliant. All of last season he was superb. He's carried on and seamlessly made the jump into the EFL. But what I think about Alistair Smith is he was released by Mansfield, goes to Altrincham, gets a chance to go to Sutton, and then is back in the EFL and playing really well, keeping a key man out of the team. So fair play to him. Really good young player. Actually did an interview with D5 Football, I think last season. Worth having a listen to.
I'm not sure you can call him a young player anymore. I think he's 27.
Is he? Bloody hell.
I think he's 27. Let me have a check.
I thought he was younger than that. But he's impressed me.
No, I take it back. Sorry, I've got. There's a different Alistair Smith somewhere out there that I've got the age of here instead. I'll take that back. Sorry, he's a young player. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was like 20 or 21, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's done well for himself to get into that team and give the manager a selection headache. He's arguably a bit undroppable at the moment. Crawley beat Bradford 2-1. 0 positives to take from this, said Derek Adams after the game. And really, Crawley, 3 Saturdays in a row, John Yems has been caught smiling, which I don't know if I should be as unnerved as I am about that, but it doesn't quite feel right, does it? Firstly, Ed, on Bradford, high hopes for them. They've gone off the boil a little bit.
I think it's more than a little bit, to be honest. They look back to being quite the average team that they have been probably the last couple of seasons since dropping into League Two. I think, injuries have maybe played a part in that. They haven't been able to. They had quite a few notable people missing yesterday. What I'm noticing, though, about them is that there's not as much depth in attacking areas as we probably thought. If you lose Andy Cook, for instance, in that striker role, you wouldn't probably say that Theo Robinson or Keenan Lavery can fill that void. I know they've still got Lee Angol unavailable at the moment, who is having a good impact so far. But it does feel like there's a bit of a drop-off between that full-strength Bradford 11, which could be competing to the top of the league, and then the team that kind of plays beneath it.
Yeah, I would, in fairness to Terry Cannon, I would be interested to see, because obviously you had Theo Robinson, Colin Lavery, Abubakar Issa, and who was the other one? Lee Angol. They're all out, so they're all attacking options not available to him. So that
they didn't have Charles Vernham either.
Of course, yeah, Charles
probably their best performer so far. One of them certainly.
Yeah, so there is mitigating factors in that, but it was a poor performance. Not enough creativity. He wasn't pleased with the defending either. I've been impressed with Will Ferry, on loan from Southampton. He's looked quite good. And if Crawley get like their first team 11 back, they do have a nice squad. They've missed people like Jordan Tunnicliffe for quite a while now. Sam Matthews had a shoulder operation. Rhys Grego Cox, the forgotten man. I mean, he had an awful injury, and I was hoping he'd be back this pre-season to challenge me. I've not seen him at all. You've had Nadesan with a red card and missing. So there have been a few problems, but John Yems has I think, finally started to get a tune out of the team, and he's very, very pleased. Port Vale also going well. A 1-0 win at Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe I'm hugely worried about. We say it every week, but I just look at them, and if you compare the players that they've got available to Oldham, the other team that are down there struggling with them, I'd even argue there's a big difference between the quality in Oldham's squad to Scunthorpe's. Is that unfair?
I think I'd have to agree with you, to be honest, about Oldham being better. We seem to say this every week about Scunthorpe. The big problem with them is their age. I don't really doubt the potential a lot of these players have. Someone like Mason O'Malley, for instance, I think could be a terrific fullback in the future. But they're all just so young. And when your most experienced people are people like Alex Kenyon and Manny Onorisa and George Taft, who are still not that old themselves, they're still in their 20s themselves. It's a bit of a Southend situation, isn't it? Where just the overall age of the squad, whilst you don't doubt the potential they have, you're just worried it's not at the level to be competitive in League Two yet.
I'm really worried about them. I have to say though, Ben Garrity and Tom Conlon, that goal deserves a lot more credit than it probably get. Fantastic setup, great first touch from Garrity and a smart finish. Oh, absolutely.
To think Chris didn't rate him.
Yeah, what does he know? What does he know? He should be scouting glaciers, not footballers. To be fair, Ben Garrity is having a fine run of form for Port Vale, who are in good nick and actually improving. I like them a lot. I like what they've got in the squad. I think they're getting a bit of depth. I think they're getting a few options. They're starting to play really well. Tom Conlon missing for a lot of the early part of the season. Obviously, when you see the quality he brings, is a big loss, and he's back now, firing on all cylinders. A great result for Port Vale yesterday, and another clean sheet for a goalkeeper who's got a little bit of stick in Covalan, and I don't get that. I think he's been.
I think he gets more stick from the opposition, to be honest, because he is a time waster. I noticed that at Swindon. I think at Scunthorpe, I might be wrong on this, but I think he did that thing where you go to take a goal kick and you pretend to get a hamstring injury. And so he just drops past the ball and kind of just stutters his way along, trying to kill some time. So I think he's that kind of goalkeeper. So he's not going to be that popular with teams that play him.
Yeah, 5 clean sheets though now. Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. Exeter, an excellent point at Hartlepool. You take that all day long. I really like Exeter's front three, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about them as the season progresses. Forest Green and Tranmere, social media battles aside, it was a decent game of football. And Tranmere probably will feel that they should have won this. And I'm looking at the highlights, and obviously I've only seen those and not the greater portion of the game. But it does look like Tranmere were the better side and were a little bit unfortunate not to take the win. Much improved performance from Stevenage as well, who I've been worried about in recent weeks. 0-0 at Harrogate's not to be sniffed at. And they probably should have won it, let's be honest. If they'd had their shooting boots on, they'd have taken 3 points there. And you couldn't argue. I don't think Harrogate would have really been able to argue with that. Leighton Orient.
They had 3 attempts cleared off the line, Stevenage. It was narrow margins, could have decided that for sure.
Yeah, and when you're in a bad run of form, you really want those to go for you. So I do feel a bit sorry for Alex Ravel after his side. Again, he's asked them to perform, and they did step up, and they played quite well. Leighton Orient and Mansfield finished 0-0 as well. Mansfield, another red card. The discipline has got to improve. Silly red card from Tyree Sinclair. That's not acceptable. I know, he claimed he didn't do anything, but come on, seriously, when your side's in a bit of a beleaguered situation, you do not want to lose any more players. The suspension for Stephen Kim was like 6 games, which I thought was harsh, personally. When you consider some of the stuff that people get away with, he got a 6-game suspension, apparently for 2 separate incidents, but there you go. Not good for an experienced player, and leaving a big hole for Nigel Clough to fill, and James Perch out for the season with a fractured skull. So if Mansfield fans were holding out hope that he'd be back quickly, that's done. He's not coming back this season, and I send my best regards to him to get back and just be healthy, because a fractured skull is a very, very serious injury. Colchester drew 0-0 with Swindon. Swindon, for all their great play, they do lack, I think, someone who's going to score them loads of goals. And I know that, we like Simpson up front. He's a big unit, but I think, they'll need more than that perhaps going forward. Northampton drew 2-2 with Salford City. Salford leaving it very late I've been very impressed with Northampton this season. I can't say the same for Salford, to be honest. I think they should be doing a lot better with what they've got. I know they've got Henderson and McElhaney out at the moment, but still, even when they had them, they weren't looking that convincing. Despite a lot of great stuff in the data doesn't win football matches, and they need to start doing that. Or I do fear a little bit for the manager, given how impatient we've seen Gary Neville and his ilk be in previous seasons. Walsall, they lost 2-1 to Bristol Rovers. Matt Taylor furious with the defending on set pieces, and rightly so. But in a wider context, Walsall's season, Ed, is looking as bad as it was last year.
It's no different, is it, really? They're still a lower bottom half side. It's really disappointing. We can't keep sitting here and really saying, Rory Holden's still got to come back and we know the impact he has. But is he going to make this much of an impact on that team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Connor Wilkinson was missing, as was Josh Labadie. But still, like, basic stuff, isn't it? That's basic defending near the end of the game.
I couldn't believe the amount of saying Sion Spence, who'd only just been brought on. I think he was brought on as basically a 90th minute sub and scored a minute later. There was no one with him.
Yeah.
Right in line with the goal, and there's no one with him, and that's a terrible, terrible way to concede.
And in the context of what we've seen Bristol Rovers with their injury problems and their start to the season, that's a really poor result at home for Walsall. Be interesting to see how this side sort of develops over the next few games, because as we approach sort of where 10 games in, you start getting a marker of where the team is and how the league table will look. I know people say give it a bit more, maybe 16 to 20 games, but it's still not good. Still not good at all, and very, very disappointing. Finally, Friday night, Barrow beat Newport 2-1. A couple of great goals in this from Barrow, Ed, but Mike Flynn fuming at his team's second half performance.
They're just underwhelming, aren't they, Newport? I think I said this last week. They've just, for a team that made the playoff final last year, have been trying to get out of this league for a while. Doesn't feel like they're going to do it again this year. They've just been really disappointing to me.
I just don't. Again, chopping and changing the side. Whether it's, he has had COVID, he has had injuries, but I think, I don't know. He just the performance in that second half. The players just kept giving the ball away. In really, if you look at the Josh Gordon's winner, it just the way that Newport would bring the ball out of their defence, and they just passed it straight to Barrow, who came back, and Gordon, to be fair to him, scored a fantastic finish. But there was
it
no
did feel like
he
was allowed to advance about 20 yards forwards, wasn't he?
Yeah,
just in space. And if you give him in that position, most players are going to go for it. You shouldn't be inviting them to do that.
No, really, Mike Flynn, absolutely livid, and even he was saying the players take responsibility for that, not me. That second half performance is not on me; it's on the players, and unfortunately, it's always on the manager. But yeah, I do get his point. Really, really poor standard, especially after a good first half. They were really good in the first half, started excellently, and it just was disappointing. But a great result for Barrow, who probably needed that, and nice to see them. Nice to see them getting a couple of class finishes, and for Gordon, who has come there needing to reignite his career, that goal will do his confidence the world of good. The table looks like this, with Forest Green top on 20 points from 9 games, Leyton Orient and Harrogate both on 16 from 9, Port Vale, Northampton, Exeter and Hartlepool in the playoff positions, and I think that's a pretty fair reflection of how those teams have played so far this season, if I'm honest. Crawley up to 8th now. What a turnaround from them, and in this early stage of the season it just shows you how quickly things can change. So, Walsall struggles in the context of how early it is, it could still quickly turn around. Oldham now level on points with Scunthorpe, only 1 point adrift of Walsall after that win yesterday. Scunthorpe on 7 points, but in poor form. Slightly worrying times. Ed, thank you for joining me today. You're the only one in this podcast who remained steadfast and available.
I always enjoy being part of this, James. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no, great stuff. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in as always. Thank you to our patrons for giving us the support that helps us produce this podcast week in, week out. And thank you to our partners, The Big Step. Until next week, goodbye.